Hello everyone and welcome back to Circus Tutorials. In today's tutorial, we'll be teaching you the classic spoon and cup trick. So I'm sure most of you don't have one of these laying around. So first we're going to show you how to make one and then how to use it, as well as a couple different variations. The reason for this tutorial today is because about a week ago, my good friend Josh Horton, Juggling Josh, reached out to a couple world record holders and asked them for a little bit of an interview. The interview I did was on this trick specifically because I hold the record for 49 cups and 49 spoons. Here's a clip of that right now.
They're all you got.
And so I figured now would be a great time to show you all how to make one as well as how to do it. So let's get started with making your own cup and spoon tray. So this is the tray that I use. This is just a cheap plastic tray that you can get in most food distribution stores. Same ones that you'll find in like cafeterias and things of that nature as well. And depending on where you're at, your local school or college might be willing to give you one of these for free that, you know, they just have a bunch of extra, or maybe one dropped and got cracked a little bit. It'll be fine for our purposes. From there, I got 4 cheap plastic cups from the dollar store, drilled through the cups, drilled through the tray, and I just bolted them down. These 2 in the middle started to crack, so I put washers on them. I caught the crack early enough that it didn't travel all the way through the tray, but just keep that in mind that you might want to put washers on from the start so that way they don't crack. Once they're on, we are ready to go. Now, you might have noticed that this little piece of tape, this is just a visual guide for me so that way when I put these spoons on, I know that they're all the same level, and we'll be going over that once we get to how to actually perform the trick. But there are other ways we can make this tray for even cheaper and probably for all of you out there even easier, since we can get all the materials that we don't have to wait. So there are a lot of different trays out there that you can get, and some of it will come down to personal preference or theming if you're doing it for a specific reason. So this metal one I got from Target in the camping section. So this is a metal grill used for cooking on top of a fire. And this one is just a plastic tray, I think also probably from Target, that I just got because I like how it looked, but I just haven't turned this into an actual tray yet. But I think the easiest to come by is going to be just a piece of wood. So I just grabbed this out of my garage. I figured this is going to be the simplest version for most of you out there, so that's what we are going to use to make our own tray. So all we're going to need is our tray, a couple of cups, and for this I'm just going to use a hot glue gun. So once we have all of those ready, we're ready to start. So I got my tray, or in this case board, 4 cups and the hot glue gun. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to space them apart, and I'm not even going to bother measuring this. I'm just doing this quick for you guys, but I'm just going to quickly kind of eyeball it and put 4 of them on there. The only thing I'm keeping in mind is I don't want to go all the way to the edge because I want somewhere for my hands to grab. So I'm going to go a couple inches inside the edge so that way I have somewhere for my hand to grab. And we'll fast forward this as a little bit of a montage. And so now my tray is complete. One thing that I want to point out is that I did go around the back a little bit as well to really keep them in place, because it didn't get a nice firm grip on the inside of the cups because there's a bit of a concave, and so I didn't want to use that much glue. So I filled it up a little bit and then went around, and that held them on perfectly. Enough so that I can even grab the 2 cups like this and hold the tray up with just the cups. And at this point, I'm more worried about the cups breaking than the glue coming loose. The glue coming loose. So once we have the tray, we need 4 spoons. The spoons I would recommend to be matching, but they don't need to be, they just have to be close. So don't mix teaspoons with tablespoons, a big one and a little one. We want relatively the same size. And for a stack of 4 like this, you can go to Walmart and get them for about $1 a piece. So there's really no excuse not to just go get 4 that match. And another thing that I would say is get your own spoon. Don't use spoons that you actually use for this. Go out and buy some, because if you're practicing this over cement and you drop them, it's going to nick the side of the spoons, and then you really don't want to be putting that in your mouth because it's kind of sharp. So get your own new spoons. I'm going to show you 2 ways to do this. I'm going to show you an easy way and a slightly harder way, and then talk about some variations, so the video is not too long. So the easy way is where we actually have the spoon heads facing towards the cup. And with a shorter board like this, one thing that you can also do is line them up on the edge of the board, so that way you know that they're all the same distance from the cup. That's honestly the hardest part, is making sure that they're all lined up perfectly, which is why I have the piece of tape on my board. Because if they're lined up, they're all going to flip the same. If one is farther forward, that one's going to flip different than the rest, and that will lead to inconsistencies and make the trick work way less often. So make sure that they're lined up, and spend a little bit more time here to make sure that they're lined up depth-wise and left and right. So make sure they're in line with the cup, and they're the same distance from the cup. The more time we spend here, the more likely we are to land the trick. So the easy version is with the spoons facing towards the cups. And what's going to happen is we're basically just going to lift the spoon straight up, then heavy end into the cup. We want the heavy ends to go in. If the heavy ends are up, a lot of times it might hit the edge and flip right back out. But if the heavy end hits in, it's going to stay in the cup. So the way we're going to do this is using mostly our legs. So we're going to go down and up, and we're just going to give the tiniest little turn of our wrist. We're not really even using the wrist that much. We're just turning the board a little bit to get the spoons to go upright, so that way they can go into the cups. So I'll show you that right now, focusing on using my legs, getting the spoons stand upright. One last check to make sure they're in line. Down, up. Just like that, that's all there is to the trick. If they're flipping too much, you're using too much wrist, really focus on using your legs to make sure they come nice and straight up and down. So that's the easier version. We are now going to cover the slightly harder version. So now I'm going to show you the slightly harder version. This is probably the way that most of you have seen, because it's the more common way. But that is getting it to do a flip. So the spoons are going to face away from the cups now, and it's going to do a half flip into the cup. Well, realistically, it's like 3/4 of a flip, but I say half flip. It's easier to get the idea across. So we're going to line them up. And again, spend some time here, because the better they're lined up, again, the easier it's going to be. Make sure they're lined up with the cups and good and in line as well. So we're still going to use our legs to get some good lift, but now we're going to use a little bit more wrist to make them flip. So bringing both wrists up at the same time to get them to flip. If they're not flipping consistently, that means your left and right hand probably aren't doing the same amount of work. And again, if you want to practice, just put each one on the end, and the 2 in the middle will just follow suit. So here we go, all 4 flipping in. Looks pretty good. Just like that, all 4 of them in the cup. This is a pretty fun trick, and you can generally get it after a couple of tries, but getting consistent does take a little bit of practice and a little bit of work. But that is the slightly harder version, getting it to do a flip inside. And that is the cup and tray trick. Again, this one is very inexpensive. The wood one, I made it from scraps, so this one effectively cost me absolutely nothing other than a scrap board, a couple of extra Dixie cups I had laying around, and some super glue. And it only took me a couple minutes to make, and it works perfectly. Because it's so cheap and inexpensive, you can make up a couple different ones. You can make this 4 one, you can make an 8, you can make a 1, have fun with it, make a couple different ones to challenge yourself, your friends, and your siblings. And you could also splurge and make a slightly nicer one with a nicer tray. But even saying splurging, this one, everything out the door, was still less than $20. So it's a very inexpensive and easy piece of equipment that you can make. Aside from just the two versions that we showed you, the half flip and the full flip, or the quarter flip and the 3/4 flip, anyways, you get the idea. There are a bunch of other variations. You can do a 1.5, a double, you can do it one-handed, or even have it on the bottom of the tray and do different variations that way as well. So experiment with it, have fun, and share with us some of your versions and tricks that you come up with. We love seeing the stuff you're doing, so go ahead and share some videos with us over on the Facebook page at Circus Tutorials, or message us here with a link and we'll make sure to check out what you guys are doing as well. As always, do all the YouTube things, like, comment, all that stuff. We do greatly appreciate it. And if there is something you want to see in a future video, leave that down below as well. We do take your comments into consideration when making future videos. With that, my name is Chuck Clark, and this is Circus Tutorials, and we will see you in the next one.